For documentary filmmaking, story is king, and as much as it hurts me to say it coming from a cinematography background, audio is probably more important than video for keeping your story moving forwards.
You're kidding me!
But getting good audio is easier said than done, especially when you're just starting out, and it's easy to get overwhelmed and make mistakes. Luckily, I've already made most of them myself, and so in this video, I'm gonna go into 5 of the most common mistakes new filmmakers make on their documentary shoots and how you can avoid them. At the end of this video, I'm gonna give you one of my favorite strategies for how to deal with super loud environments, so make sure you stick around because doing this one simple thing has saved me so many times in the edit. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back. And if you're new here, my name is Luke Forsyth, and on this channel, I teach the skills I've learned over 10 years working as a documentary cinematographer and photographer. If that sounds like something you'd be into, make sure you hit that subscribe button because I've got new videos coming out every week. Over the years of doing run and gun shoots in difficult locations, I've managed to make pretty much any audio mistake there is. I came from a photography background before I got into video, and so for me, especially in the beginning, I prioritized visuals over everything. And if I'm being honest, my first love is still the camera, but I've come to grudgingly accept that without audio, it's very hard to tell a good story.
Are you kidding me?
And in documentary, at least, the very best documentaries, there's so much more to audio than just doing one master interview and then layering B-roll over top. For a documentary to feel immersive, like you're actually there with the main characters as they live their lives, you're gonna wanna capture audio as they talk to their friends and family, or make difficult phone calls, or strike up conversations with a random stranger. These are the moments that will make your film feel intimate and personal, in my opinion anyways. I'm not saying a good sit-down interview isn't important, because you need those too, but getting solid audio in the field as things happen is gonna take your project to the next level. So let's get right into it. What are the common mistakes I see in new filmmakers, and how can you avoid them? I'm gonna start out with the most obvious one, just to really hammer the point home. The worst mistake you can make as a new filmmaker is to not make audio a priority. I really don't think I can stress this enough. Pretty B-roll and slow motion shots with some voiceover in the background is not enough for an immersive documentary. You might be able to put together a cool short or maybe a piece of branded content, but the best documentaries do much, much more, and audio is gonna form the spine of your story. If you have clean audio, you can cut around sloppy camera work, but if you drop the ball on sound, it's really hard to tell the story with visuals alone. Once when I was right at the beginning of my career, I was hired to film an interview with the former president of Mexico. It was a rush job, and it was just me and the producer with no time to find a sound guy. So it fell to me to handle the audio, and I did the classic beginner thing and left it all to the last minute. I had about an hour to get everything ready, and I spent 95% of that time tweaking the frame and moving the lights just a little this way or a little that way, trying to get the perfect roll off. Then the guy came in and I threw a lav mic on him at the last minute and started rolling. I didn't even put up an overhead boom or anything, and during the interview, I just kept my eye glued to the monitor to check focus. When I finally got the footage onto my computer later, I realized there had been a problem with my mic placement and the lav track was pretty much unusable. And because I didn't boom my shotgun and it was like 6 feet back on top of the camera, it was also unusable. In the end, the whole thing had to be cut from the final show because, you guessed it, the audio sucked. The frame looked pretty good, but it didn't matter, and you're probably not going to be surprised to hear that I never heard from that producer again. This is maybe an extreme example of a beginner's mistake because of course audio is important in an interview, but I think it gets the point across. Audio matters, and if you don't make it a priority, you won't be able to push the plot ahead. My advice is that if you have a budget, hire a sound guy. A good sound guy can take so much pressure off the DP and give the director peace of mind that the audio is going to be covered all the time. So before you start rolling on a new scene or decide to blow your whole budget on renting a fancy drone or a gimbal system, ask yourself, am I giving my audio the attention it needs? One of the best audio tools a documentary filmmaker has at their disposal is a wireless lav mic. It's going to allow you to get good sound on moving characters and will cover you when they're not facing the camera or even near the camera. But how you use them matters, and the second mistake new filmmakers make with their audio comes down to mic placement. Just a second ago I told you how I messed up that interview with the former president because of bad mic placement, and if I had just moved it a tiny bit, I might have saved myself a lot of embarrassment. So where is the right place to put a lav mic? Well, for starters, hide it. I know you might see news broadcasts or YouTube videos where the little wire is coming at the top and you can see the mic around the collar of the person speaking, but for me, this totally wrecks the feeling of being a fly on the wall observer, and I think you should avoid this at all costs. Okay, now that I've got that out of the way, where should you hide it? The mistake I made with the Mexican president was to try and hide it on the outside of his shirt by trying to put it under his tie. I couldn't see it in the frame, and so I thought I'd done my job well, but when I listened to it after, I could hear every tiny little movement the guy made as the tie switched swished over the mic. It was seriously terrible, and as soon as I heard it, I knew I'd messed up. Since then, I've always put it under the person's clothes, usually between the skin and the first layer that they're wearing. Now that can change if the person is wearing like 5 layers and a parka, but my reasoning is that skin doesn't rustle like a shirt, so it's just one less place for your sound to go wrong. Now I am not a professional sound guy by any means, and I don't want to pretend that I am like the final authority on mic placement.
No, all I'm looking is for quality audio.
Actually, Mark Bone made a really good video with Pro Sound Guy on his channel that I'll link to in the description about how to place lav mics, but I personally basically try to get next to the skin at around sternum height. There are a few different ways of physically attaching the mic, and some work better than others depending on the situation. Taping right on the skin with medical tape is great, but it can be awkward if you're a man miking a woman, and if the person has a hairy chest, it's not a pretty scene when you take the tape off. Most of the time I use these little undercover things from Rycoat that you sandwich around your lav mic and then stick it to the inside of a shirt, and they look great. I'll link to those in the description as well. They usually stay on there for an entire day, and they also have the added benefit of a bit of wind protection. If the person is totally covered in sweat or the stickies won't stay on for any reason, a good trick I learned while filming a survival show last year is to tape a safety pin just below the end of the mic and then pin it on the inside of that person's shirt. This works great when the subject is either really dirty or really active because it won't fall off, but just make sure not to put the pin on so high that it rattles against the tip of the mic. Okay, so even with all those ways to attach a lav to someone's clothes, there's one simple way I could have saved myself from ruining the interview with the president. The third mistake on this list is one of the easiest of all to avoid, and for any run and gun doc shooters, I'd say this one is critical, and that is not monitoring the audio as you go. Once I hit record on that interview, I got tunnel vision on the monitor, just checking focus and occasionally glancing at the audio levels to make sure he wasn't peaking. But if I'd just been wearing a $5 pair of headphones, I would have heard that scratching sound right away and could have asked for a 5-minute pause to find a better spot for the lav. Not monitoring audio for that interview still haunts me to this day, and the one positive that came from it is that I will never make that mistake again. And you shouldn't just monitor audios during sit-down interviews. Listening to what people are saying through their lav mic is super important and can really help you understand what to film. You might think you're hearing everything a person is saying, but there are a surprising number of times when the mic is picking up things that you aren't. Like if a character is whispering to someone else or talking to themselves, having an earbud in will tell you that it's time to roll on something that you might not have otherwise noticed. Once I was filming in a bat cave in Kenya, and the scientist I was with lost his way, and for half an hour he couldn't find the exit tunnel. It was pitch black and I couldn't really see what he was doing, but I realized he was panicking only because he started to whisper, don't panic," to himself under his breath. When I heard this, I knew to start rolling, and in the end this created a really powerful and very real scene that I could have easily missed. Side note, being trapped in a cave when the only person who knows the way out is starting to panic is absolutely terrifying. Headphones are so cheap, and you don't need crazy over-ear ones either. Just get some that won't fall out and keep them on you at all times. As soon as a lav mic goes onto someone, pop in some headphones and don't stop listening until the mic comes off. Simple. Actually, that Batcave shoot is a really good segue into the fourth mistake I want to touch on, and that's thinking that you have to have a good shot in order to hit record on the camera. Like I said already, audio is the backbone of the story, and you don't necessarily need to have a direct shot of the person's mouth moving in order to use it. You can always layer over B-roll or a cutaway, and even if something is happening in the pitch black or in another room, if you're monitoring your audio like you should be and you hear your character start talking, just hit record. We live in the digital age, and there's no real reason not to roll on something like there was in the film days, so just roll for audio only, and you can always throw away the shot later. Imagine this scene, which was a real one that happened to me before. I was following a business owner who was in a rage over a mistake one of his employees made. He rushed into the office and slammed the door in my face. A pretty clear sign I wasn't allowed to follow him. He started yelling at this person and telling them off, and I knew it was a great storytelling moment, so I just filmed the closed door and let the wireless audio carry the story. You'll see this all the time in docs, especially in sports docs where the crews get locked out of the dressing room sometimes after a game. That doesn't mean that you can't keep the story going though, and a frame of a closed door with good audio in the background is totally usable and the audience will accept it. You have to be monitoring the audio to know when these moments present themselves, so keep your headphones in and just roll. Alright, so the last mistake I want to touch on comes down to timing. We've already established that wireless lav mics are a documentary filmmaker's best friend, but stopping the action to physically get them on people can be pretty annoying. When I was starting out, I used to put this off so I didn't disrupt the shots I was getting, but I've since learned that this is a mistake you should absolutely avoid. The best time to put a mic on your character is as soon as you can. As soon as you decide you're going to spend even a little bit of time with someone, try and get a mic on on them right away. You never know when they're going to say something you might want to use, and even though you can sometimes get people to repeat missed actions, you'll rarely be able to repeat missed dialogue. People in documentaries aren't actors, and if you ask them to repeat something they said, it's pretty much always going to sound fake. So get them mic'd up as soon as you possibly can. It's so much better to deal with a 2-minute pause at the start of the day than realize they said something amazing with their back turned to the shotgun, and you'll never be able to go back and get it again. Okay, that's it. Those are 5 of the most common audio mistakes you should avoid when shooting your next documentary project. But before I go, I wanted to give you one bonus piece of advice that has saved me so many times in the edit, especially when you're having to shoot in areas with a lot of ambient noise that you can't control. And that's to see the sound. So what does that mean? Imagine you're filming a scene with a character in their kitchen, but they live next to the freeway and every 2 minutes a car drives past. Or maybe they live near a construction site and you can hear jackhammers in the background. These sounds will jump out at audiences and they can find them really distracting. But there's a very simple way to trick their brains into ignoring the sound completely, and that's to show them where it's coming from. I know it sounds crazy, but all you need to do is show them a quick cutaway of that construction site or the busy highway, and they'll forget about it. Now, I'm not a scientist, and I don't really know why this works, but it does. The same goes for heavy wind or rain, or anything else for that matter. Let audiences see the sound, and they will ignore noise that would normally bother them. This has been such good advice for me that I actually wrote "see the sound" on a piece of gaff tape and had it stuck to my wireless lavs to remind me to get those simple cutaways. Once you get into the edit and have them, it can save what otherwise might be an audio nightmare. So there we go. If you can avoid these mistakes, your audio game is going to improve big time. I'm curious what other audio issues you struggle with, so let me know in the comments and maybe I can make a video about them. Thanks for watching, and if you learned something today, think about subscribing. It really does help this channel. And if you like that one, maybe you'll like this other one I made about 5 other mistakes you can avoid as a filmmaker that aren't all about audio. See ya.